everybody's sort of looking out for each other's kids. And the teachers, like it's very integrated, like the teachers, the faculty, the students, the administration, and the parents. So you're really stepping into a very strong community with incredible values that's really up to, having your child reach their potential.
I'm Glenn Herbert, and I'm an editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading private schools to gain insights into their programs, culture, traditions, and leadership. This includes insights from parents, alumni, and administrators. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
Initially, it was we decided, we found out when Cassie was in grade 2 that traditional kinds of learning wasn't going to be the best way for her to learn. So we tried a few things, and then it became very clear that she was the exact kind of kid that would fit into a Montessori environment. And then it became, well, there's lots of schools that call themselves Montessori schools, but which school should we pick? And the more we researched it, all of the roads led to Dearcroft because it had the right kinds of certifications. And then we went and saw the school, and after one interview and watching her go into the classroom, it was obvious where she needed to be.
And with Johnny, it was clear because we just loved the school and the community so much that there was really no question. So
yeah, with Johnny, it was sort of like it wasn't like a Montessori method was sort of necessary for him or anything like that, but it would have been totally unfair for him to not get to go to Dearcroft. I often looked at where the kids were there and going, man, I wish I had a school like that when I was a kid.
I really think of it as, like a river. Okay. Like sometimes you can cross to the other side in one leap, or sometimes you can take different steps and like from stone to stone. And so with our daughter, we actually experienced, one educational system for her kindergarten. We experienced another system for her grade 1 and 2. We experienced another one for grade 3. And it was almost like these stepping stones that we were like, that this doesn't fit, and this doesn't fit, and this, we don't, this is our first child. Like, you want that best experience. And then when we found Dearcroft, and it really was like, I think I Googled it. I think I looked at, like, I think it wasn't even a referral. We didn't know. And when we went there and when she got there, it was like, we've crossed it. Like, all those were wonderful experiences and stepping stones, but we're on the other side, and this is it. It was a process, and it wasn't like, oh, she was so hard to find a school for. It was more like, nah, this, when you go like, nah, this isn't what I want. Nope, this isn't what I want. This is it, right? And so I think that was really the feeling of it. And it was our first, and we wanted an educational system that would bring out her full potential.
No question. I think one of the biggest things about it is the Montessori method, and Dearcroft in particular. I don't remember ever having to nag the kids about doing homework, ever. They took care of that themselves. They self-managed themselves from when they were in early elementary school. So imagine just how useful that is as a skill for them. So there was never a point at which I had to nag them about that. There was never a point at which they didn't want to go to school. Sometimes they were disappointed if school was canceled. So I think that was one of the biggest things you would see, is they took care, like, the amount of independence and initiative and self-direction was amazing. Like, there was just never any nagging necessary, ever. It was done.
I would say for Cassie, it was experiential learning and the opportunity to travel and to see, like she saw almost every province in Canada with Dearcroft. It really fostered for her a love of Canada and kind of integrating what she was learning at school with in an experiential way. That was so impactful for her.
For Johnny, it's, I think what he loves, the teachers, he loves the milieu, he loves the fact that there's all different ages. Johnny's the kind of guy that loves kids that are 5 years younger than him, but also loves hanging out with the adults. So having all of that around him, and the sort of there's a lot of diversity in a school in terms of ages when you have K to 8, and that they're so much more integrated as opposed to being separated the way they are in a lot of schools, where you don't really get a chance to, the grade 8s don't even associate with a kindergarten kid in any way. But that's absolutely normal at Dearcroft.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much. Yeah, I agree with John. He's just so appreciated. Like there's been such different stages of development. And as you kind of go into, from CASA and then to grades 1, 2, 3 are all together. And then grades 4, 5, 6, but you're doing your own program, but you're in with, older and younger kids. And as you progress, then you get into the leadership roles. It's really wild. And then by the time you get to grade 7 and 8, you're like the influence you have in the school, but then the obligation and responsibility and what you have to teach the younger ones, like he'll spend time in the toddler class and he'll spend time in CASA helping them read. And it's so integrated. And I think that's really important in today's society is really being able to get along and work, like become part of many different generations. Ooh, I would say the community. I would say that the community is so strong and everybody's sort of looking out for each other's kids. And the teachers, like it's very integrated, like the teachers, the faculty, the students, the administration, and the parents. So you're really stepping into a very strong community with incredible values that's really up to having your child reach their potential, whatever that is. And it's not the same for every child, but like becoming their own person. And there's a real celebration of that. So
yeah, I would say that would be my number one thing too. Like obviously the rest of the academics and all that, that's all great and it's really good. But as a parent, if I'm going to be selfish about it, it is the fact that, pre-COVID, there was always 2 or 3 interesting social events per year where the students were there, the parents were there, the teachers were there. Sometimes it was just the parents and the teachers. And you get to know all the other parents and they're friends of ours now. And part of with Johnny graduating, and that's the end of our era at Dearcroft, we're like, we need to stay in touch with all these people and figure out a way to stay in touch with the school. But the school does a pretty good job of that. Like Cassie's been back numerous times and says hi to her old teachers, and she's in second year university now. So it's pretty neat.
you know what? I think that I don't know if this is an improvement because I would say they really make an effort to, introduce your child to many sports and many activities and skills. And I think if anything, like that's where, if people are sort of expecting the huge sports program and the huge intramural program, like I think it's more difficult to do that in a independent school or a smaller private school setting, right?
Yeah, I would say, like Dearcroft, when you see the facility, you're going to notice it doesn't have a big gymnasium with basketball courts and a running track and, soccer field and all that kind of stuff. It's a big open area where almost anything can happen. But they also do all kinds of interesting things. They go kayaking, they go skating, they go on outings where, that's more than made up for. It's not always the same, sports field in the back of the school. It's a huge variety of things. So I guess maybe that quote weakness, if you want to call it that, in terms of not having that glittering facility for athletics has them take advantage of other things.
I think what was astonishing was there was like a parent night where we were able to go and look at like what's happening in the CASA program, and like the kids would be showing you and demonstrating, what's happening in the different ages and stages, what's happening in grade 7 and 8. And it was mind-blowing because you just see the level that these kids are operating at, and you see like the confidence and how they're presenting things and what they're working on. And it was like show and tell taken to a whole new level. But it wasn't sort of, how can I say this, staged or something. It was like really natural and authentic, and the kids were really like excited to share it. And I love that. And then I think also the arts program and the music, like every year, the arts club and the show that they would put on, the music program, like, oh, the Mother's Day, the Christmas concerts, the end of year concerts, like, you're crying because it's so moving. And they put a lot of thought into, the types of songs and what the kids are learning, and just showcasing them. It's really quite remarkable. It's really different from a lot of concerts I've been to at other schools.
Yeah, and there's more than just one. It's like there's several events a year. There's the arts club, there's the Christmas concert, there's all kinds of events where the parents are invited into the school and the kids basically perform for them. And they don't just pick like the superstar kids that can impress everyone. Everybody's involved from the little tiny kids from CASA all the way up to, the talented kid who's going to end up on Broadway someday. They all get a time in the spotlight. I'd have to go for kindness, is that, both our kids, like when they say, what's the most important thing they learned? It's kindness. There's no bullying or being bullied that ever happens there. It just wouldn't be accepted by anyone, including the kids. So it's, that gets, driven in, that's the wrong word to say. It gets fostered and developed into all the kids that are at Dearcroft. What would you say?
I would say it's honoring the unique person that your child is.
Yeah.
Like that really, it's like a journey of coming into and having the confidence to be who they are and to be themselves. And I honestly think that's the most important journey of life. That is, if you could have that for your child, you would give anything for that, for them to feel like accepted and loved and honored for who they are and what they're passionate about and what they're interested in, instead of trying to fit into like a mold of how they should be, or the types of, what they need to achieve by when. So I think that's what I'm amazed by, is just, especially when we see our daughter who's going into, second year, and all of her classmates and the wide range of things that the kids are doing. It's really, motivating, and it's really quite inspiring, actually, because you see this child and you remember how much they loved, fighting against shark finning or something. And then you see that this kid is like in the marine biology program at Dalhousie or something. Like, it's just like all of the links and connections. It's really amazing. Oh, yeah. You know what? I would say
there's kind of a
definitely
variety.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
like
is so much variety.
I think there's some people for whom this is just the closest private school. And it's like, and it's a very wealthy neighborhood in which this is situated. So you'll have the very, very wealthy people that's their school. But they're also the sort that are like open to everything. Like there's no snootiness at all, despite the fact that, There are some wildly successful, parents who have their children at that school, but there's no, echelons of anything. Then you have, I would say, the really committed Montessori people, and then parents like us that just love the school so much they just want that for their kids. But what's that common thread is that everybody gets starts to really realize just how wonderful a place this is. And so, the parents, I think, become almost the way our children are rubs off on the parents. We get to be more, we get to know people regardless of whatever. And, so it's a very, very tight knit parent group. Like there's a lot of very close friends and friendships end up being developed at the school among the parents as well as the kids.
There definitely, I would say, is an entrepreneurial spirit at Dearcroft.
Yes.
Like John kind of characterized, like, oh, some different like surface type things that if you were almost stereotyping the people in the school, but it's not like that. It's not like like I see it as entrepreneurial, like people that are founders of companies, people that are, making changes for society.
Yeah, so these wildly successful parents, most of them self-made entrepreneurs and businesses.
Yeah. I would say for one of the things for both of our kids was the MMUN, like the Model Montessori United Nations trip to New York, and at the United Nations General Assembly, like that for them was extraordinary. Like they prepare for that. They go, a class gets to go every 2 or 3 years. So it's really something that you do in grade 7 or 8. And that was extraordinary, like to see their growth and then to have them have that experience.
I would ask the other one. I think you're talking about experiential learning earlier, Kath, is, the school brings in speakers, impressive speakers, to talk about a variety of subjects. And for Cassie, one of those speakers, I think she was grade 5 for her, was Rob Stewart, rest in peace, who was one of the lead activists in the world against shark finning. She got to meet him, and this had a huge impact on her. This is why she wanted to become a marine biologist, and still has that goal to some extent today. It's why she learned how to scuba dive a year and a half, 2 years later, and my son learned how to scuba dive. It's why we all ended up changing our diets. So so it, because of the impact this guy had, and that came because of Dearcroft. It rubbed off on our entire family.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, amazing. Like, can contact them directly. I ask for a question, I send an email, I get a response that day. I would say, they're not just faculty or administration. They've become, close friends, and we're really appreciate them, being in our lives, especially as we leave the school, because we don't want to leave this wonderful community. So I guess I'm
another kid.
I guess I'm I guess I'm just impressed with how they work together. And even, we saw it with what happened with the COVID pandemic, is literally they came together, they figured it out. The experience has been unreal in terms of even like the graduation from last year. I was blown away with what they did when they could have just said, sorry, it's not, it's COVID, but how they rose up and pivoted has been truly extraordinary. And they couldn't have done that without being, so close knit and committed to our kids.
And the COVID thing really, I think, showed, COVID sort of brings out either strengths or failings in an organization. And it really showed the strengths at Dearcroft. Like, it was literally over a weekend and they were back in school online on like the next, and not just on, like, they were doing it well from the get-go, and it just got better. And then when they went back to school, everything was so safe and so buttoned down and so systematic that, you felt confident that your kid was safe and that everything was going to be fine. And literally I don't think there was a single issue during the entire time that kids went back to school, which is amazing. So yeah, I would say that, teachers and admin are totally integrated with parents.
I would say, John often says this, actually. He says, if you want to add 2 extra years of childhood and wonder, that's why. If you want your child to know who they are and really feel confident and have, that high self-esteem in who they uniquely are. And then, of course, like that, the integration of academics, physical, community,
Artistic.
art, love of Canada, love of environment, like all stewardship of environment, like it's all sort of wrapped up.
And I would say as well,
one.
being a self-starter, being independent, being responsible for yourself, as opposed to, having someone telling you this is what you got to have it done by when. It's really, learning initiative and being a self-starter is huge.
That's tough, because as you like, for us in our business, that's the most difficult thing to find are people that can, they might have all the credentials, but they don't have initiative. They don't feel confident in starting things or motivated to really rise to their potential. How do you teach that? You can only create an environment where that emerges. You actually can't teach that. So that's what we would say.
Well, certainly don't wait till grade 3 and start before grade 1. Like if I were to back up and do this all over again, I would have had the kids in CASA and go all the way through. And, Dearcroft's unique in that it has 7 and 8 as well, is just take advantage of as much of Dearcroft as you can get. So, start them off there early and let them go all the way through. There's many parents at the school that have done that. Like their kids were little toddlers in the CASA and graduated from grade 8, and they got to go all the way through. That's the only thing I would do over again.
Yeah. And I would say, I think maybe I would think parents do this, where take advantage of, going for the tour, take advantage of spending that day, in the class, take advantage of speaking to other parents about their experience, especially, not just the people that are in the grade you're looking at, but parents whose kids have gone through the different grades or who are in a higher grade as well. So I think that would be useful.
For more information about this school, you can visit their profile at ourkids.net.